Welcome back to the shop. In this episode, we're going to be making repairs to a broken leg on a modern dining room chair. I've got a very pretty dining room chair into the shop for a little bit of repair. The back is in great shape, it's a nice cane, it's an upholstered seat. The problem is with one of the back legs. Evidently someone leaned back in the chair and has fractured that leg. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit so you can see that. You can just see the crack in that back leg. So our objective here is going to be to repair this chair and get it back to the customer. But before we do any of that, what we're going to do is we're going to cover the upholstery to make sure that it doesn't get damaged or stained here in the shop. So the leg of this chair did more than just break, it actually fractured. So you can actually see that it's in tiny little pieces, and actually a few pieces are missing going all the way around. It doesn't look like solid wood. It's a Chinese-made chair, so my guess is that it may be some sort of a fruit wood or from a rubber tree plant. But the way this break is right now, I can't repair it yet, because what we're going to do is we're going to cut this off, insert a dowel from the upper leg to the lower leg, and bring them together. But I don't have a good clean place in order to make that cut. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue the crack or the fracture in place, put some clamps on it, and then once that holds, we're going to come back and then use a dovetail saw, cut it off, insert a dowel between the two pieces, and then patch up wherever we can. So first step, we're going to get some Hyde glue in there in order to try and close up and get us a clean spot for us to make that cut. Okay, we're going to go for the glue up now. And as you've seen me use before, I've got my Hyde glue, my cloth, as well as some water to clean up the glue. So first steps that we're going to go through is get some glue into the syringes so we can squirt it down inside. So before I use my Hyde glue, I always put it in a tub of hot water just to thicken it up a little bit. I'm sorry, to thin it out a little bit, because if it sits in the cold, it definitely will get thicker. All right, so we got a little bit of glue here. Get some more. I'm just using a thinner syringe to be able to get in there. So I can really just tip it a little bit, extend the crack, and then inject some glue in there. I bought these syringes online. It's one of my first times using them. And it was based on the results of seeing Thomas Johnson of Thomas Johnson Antique Furniture Repair using them, or using syringes. But then also there's a gentleman up in Canada has a website called Fixing Furniture that does a really nice job. And I enjoy watching his videos. And if you look for his YouTube channel, it's called Fixing Furniture. He does a very nice job. He does a great job explaining what he's doing. And I've seen him use the syringes as well too. So I thought I would give this a shot to see how it would work. So far so good. The Hyde glue is very thick, so it takes a little bit of pressure to push it out through the syringe. But so far I'm kind of liking the application method here. Now it says the syringes are one-time use. The syringes themselves, but I think the tips, as long as you clean them out, would be a little bit longer. All right. So with that in place, you can see I've glued a couple of clamp blocks here. And what I need to do is push this leg just a little bit this way. And I'm going to do is bring this down this way. Just to get a little bit of clamping pressure on there, so that she will hold in place. Now again, the purpose for this is not to repair it. It's to get into a place where I can actually cut this off and have it be the little fractured pieces in place, which might happen, which might not happen. We shall see. So we're gonna let this sit for a couple hours, let the glue dry up. With the temporary glue complete and the clamps removed, what we've now done is clamp the chair to get it ready to cut this leg off. Just to see how well our glue job did. You know, I did a measurement here of center to center of 22.5, and center to center is 22.5. So that means we glued the leg back on pretty square, which is a good thing, because then when we make the cut, we'll be able to get the chair so she won't rock when it's glued together. I did put a mark on the back side of the leg. That way, when I glue it back up, I'll know exactly how it aligns from a graining perspective, but then also from the chip out. So just a little black mark in the back. And now we're gonna move on to cutting this off. I've clamped the chair to the bench itself so she won't rock. And we're gonna go right down through the center of this. So it looks as though this leg may have been repaired once before, or it's part of the design of the leg. I can't tell, because inserted in here is a 3/4 inch dowel, and here's a 3/4 inch dowel. So I can't tell if that is a design of the leg, which it's tough to see because there's a gap in that leg. I don't want to remove any of these to find out. But my initial plan of inserting a 3/4 inch dowel in here is not going to work because I'd be drilling out that whole piece, which I don't want to do. So that actually measures exactly 3/4 of an inch. This measures 3/4 of an inch. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do is maybe put a 5/8 inch dowel, go pretty deep in, probably as much as 2 inches, or at least 1.5 inches on each side, so I can get it up into the leg of into the support brace of the chair, and then come down 1.5 inches on here to get some support. This leg is definitely not going to be as strong as the original, but very interesting. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit for you. You can actually see that there's a gap in that dowel. Let's see if I bring it in. You can actually see a gap right here, which may have caused it to fail because it was wiggling back and forth. So I'm going to try and get some epoxy down in there, and then drill some holes, get a 5/8 inch dowel in there, and see if we can get set up. So I found center on the leg using my centering jig here. Do a couple of marks across, so we got the center. And now we're going to use a Forstner bit, drill as straight as a hole as we can. This is too difficult to try and get it into the drill press. So let's see how we go. Yeah, there was definitely a repair done to this leg before, because I'm into the fruit wood. So we're going to be putting a 3/4 inch dowel back in there, because I did an undersized 1/2 inch cut here, and this has been repaired before. Okay, so that brings a different predicament, but that's okay. What we're going to do now is chip out the old dowel that was here, and my guess is that whoever repaired it did not have a tight fit, and then the wiggling of the leg caused it to pull out. Let me pull out a piece of this dowel so I can show you. Yep. That is a 3/4 inch birch dowel. So this leg has been repaired once before. Yep. You can actually see the PVA glue on that dowel. All right, so it's gonna be a little bit more work, but we're gonna clean it out. We're going to do the same thing up here. And I think the difference we're going to do is, rather than using PVA glue, we're going to wind up using some epoxy to get a better connection. One of the benefits of a bench on wheels is you have the chance to be able to slide it out so you can actually clamp down the chair. What I've done is got the chair upside down, got some blocks across, clamps on it, so that it'll hold in place while I drill out this center dowel here. There's going to be an insert that I put into the photo that will show why this failed. It was rocking against that gap that was there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use that same 1/2 inch Forstner bit, and we're going to drill out that dowel that's there and try and close that gap so that she doesn't fall apart again. Now that both of our holes have been drilled and the dowel's been cut to length, we've got 3 parts. We've got the original chair with a 3/4 inch hole, we've got the leg with a 3/4 inch hole, and then we have a 3 inch 3/4 inch dowel. I'm using a 2-part epoxy to glue this together, and mixed in with that 2-part epoxy is a colorant. That way when I go to touch up the chair later on, it'll make it a little bit easier for the final touch-ups. When using a 2-part epoxy, the benefit of it is that if there are any gaps, the 2-part epoxy will fill that gap. And as you remember, this chair failed because of a gap between the dowel and the edge of the chair. So here I am liberally applying the epoxy to the dowel, to the inside of the hole, and then I'll do the exact same thing on the top side of the dowel and on the leg itself. Then we'll force that in, kind of tap it into place, and then we'll apply clamps and then let it sit for a minimum of 24 hours to allow the epoxy to glue up and cure, and so we wind up with a good solid leg. With the epoxy applied, we put on the clamps, check for square, and the clamps are providing not only downward pressure but also lateral pressure. The downward pressure to ensure the epoxy glue joint is tight, and the lateral pressure to ensure the leg is square, so that when it's all said and done, the chair does not rock. So we have the downward pressure, we've got the lateral pressure, clean up the epoxy, and now let this sit for 24 hours. After sitting for 24 hours, we remove the clamp, and now we move on to the phase of recontouring that leg to remove any excess epoxy or any chips from the glue up. I like using a round rasp, and what that allows me to do is get into the contour of the leg and gently file across the contour, feeling for any bumps or imperfections in the glue joint. This is more a feel versus an eye, because that way you can tell whether or not you're going to have a smooth transition around the contour of the leg. You check that against the other legs to ensure you have consistency, and just continually go through, file it down, and then if there are any voids, we'll come back later during the touch-up process, fill those voids, and then use the touch-up kit to get to the final color stain. I forgot to turn the camera on when I was doing the touch-ups, but let me walk you through the process that I used to do that. First, I filled any voids with a wood putty, then went in with a brown touch-up that aligned with the background in the chair, went in with a scratch-all and mirrored the grain patterns in the wood putty, and then went back with a white touch-up to fill those scratches that I made. That way the grain appears to follow through the entire chair, and the repair then blends in with the entire graining pattern of the chair. Here's a look of the before and after. If you like this video, please click like and don't forget to subscribe. And thank you for tuning in to A.G. Johnson & Son Furniture Restoration.